Okay, welcome everyone to Senate Education. May 1st, 3:09. We'll vote PCBs tomorrow. We're gonna work on H6, H887 today. And we'll hold on to see if we're gonna need another vehicle with miscellaneous education. We have put a bunch of things in different spots, but we'll see how things wrap up. Representative Conlon, I can't thank you enough for coming down. We can tell you've all put a tremendous amount of work into section 1 of 887. We had some questions came up yesterday, and I know we don't have a great record with you. Last time we had good questions, we forgot our questions. So this time we're gonna make it up to you. And I guess one thing that I'm wondering, and maybe we can just go back and forth and have a conversation for a little bit, is given the amount of time that's left, are you okay if we do some kind of check-in in January? In other words, can I put some, I'd like to I was thinking about this on the floor. In January, I mean, this could happen anyhow, but I'd like to get some kind of form to check in where our,
From the commission.
from the commission.
So there is
Was
language
there
in
something
here.
there? Okay.
That, well, it says that, I think in the reporting, that they're supposed to submit a work plan. In September, and then January, it may say December, that it got changed. That they would provide, a written report containing its preliminary findings and recommendations, including short-term containment considerations for the 2025 legislation on or before December 15th.
Great.
So that is on page 10 of 35.
Great. We've not gotten that far in our sort of intense go through, so that's great to know. And that gives everybody on the two committees an opportunity to sort of take a look at where things are at. So that you know, and everyone knows, in my meeting with Senator Cummings this morning, they're mostly working, they're looking at section 1, all connected to what can we do to understand better the situation that we're in, and how can we address those kinds of issues? So I'm sure they're going to have some issues, some changes, and we'll give them, we don't have possession of the bill, so we'll give them our recommendations hopefully by tomorrow. So that check-in feels good to you in terms of you're the chair, next year if you're the chair. What's that? No announcements yet. Okay, me, other questions before I jump in with a couple more findings. Senator Weeks.
Yeah, so what came up yesterday is we've been discussing for a couple of days now, the size of the commission. 24 being that we got one Secretary of Education, but we've got 2 MEAs, we've got a couple of 3 superintendents, number of principals, et cetera. Wondering why the committee, why instead of a single representative who then goes back and talks to his or her constituents or associations or whoever, why such a large block of duplicate members?
Sure. And I just also give some information. I think finance is also concerned, and I suspect it's going to wield its power down there a little bit to get it down.
So I don't think you would find our committee protesting in the streets if that were to happen. It got expanded, so I think when it left our room, and again, we didn't have possession of it, it had 15 members. Well, one thing that we did not have on it were any legislators.
Okay.
Really believing this was to be a work group submitting a report, and legislators weren't necessary. Ways and Means had a different feeling, especially as the scope of the commission expanded a bit more into sort of the ed fund world. So your point is well taken. I think I would just say that in terms of numbers, it does have 3 superintendents. That was sort of an acknowledgement that they're the ones who are sort of living in the world between school boards and principals and all of that. But like I said, I do not believe that you would hear protesting in the streets if the size of this commission shrunk. When we did it I think we had 15. we felt that was large. But also thought that that was an advantage because really what probably will happen is that there will be discrete work groups. Like this group will be discussing the ed fund and unfunded mandates that are part of it. This group might be doing that. But anyway, then it did grow larger than we had anticipated.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sarah Village, please.
Thank you, Chair. It does seem as though, I like that, at least you've got like one superintendent that operates a career tech center and one that superintendent of a supervisory union composed of at least 3 separate school districts. So those are really like particular,
Yeah.
instances.
We did want diversity
That is-
of situation
Yeah.
there.
But I hope we can keep that,
I mean, I can't support it frankly, just because we're running out of time, if this is gonna be a huge safety, and I don't think, in my conversation with Cummings also, there's no way 24 is gonna live, I think. My gut.
There are 5 you could remove right away.
Yeah, I think we've gotta just think about it, get it down to something a little more.
That's understandable.
And then I also just make a comment.
Yeah, please.
Which is, Senator Weiss has brought up multiple times that we have like 30 studies that have been done around finance or something like that, education finance 23,
38.
38. I just want to just comment that I hope this, this group avails itself of all that work that's already been
I
done.
think that is actually in here.
Oh, okay, for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not-
I think
Liz, I've added that, we've all been very busy. So it will consult the work that's already been done.
Yeah.
As Senator Hubert mentioned. Okay, great. Go ahead,
Can I
please.
ask you a question, which is, why does finance have a problem with the number? Just curious. For
Well,
financial reasons or?
No, in terms of just the massive 24 people on a committee, even with subcommittees, feeling it would be tough. And I tend to agree. I mean, that's a big group of people.
It is a big group, but I feel like yesterday we talked about how the work is huge and like it'd be nice for the subcommittees to have lots of people, but I mean, they'll do what they're gonna do, so.
Related to that, Representative Conley, can you just help me understand, this, we'll get into another question I have. When we did the Act 250 commission, and it's really my only point of reference of traveling the state, there was an incredible facilitator that did this for us. So we would go to a community. I don't think we hit every county. We're talking about trying to get one, having some kind of conversation every county. I think the committee altogether was maybe 7 of us, but sometimes 3 of us would go to a county, that sort of thing. And the facilitator was so great because, they had a particular way of engaging the community, asking questions and then bringing all of that information back. And I know we're not there's a consultant involved in this, but maybe you could just say something so we don't, get into any back and forth at the end. Like, what do you see the consultant doing?
I think we looked at broad.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of people who felt that a paid facilitator with expertise in facilitating would be a very worthwhile investment.
Yep.
So definitely that was considered. We left it broader in case there needed to be significant financial analysis that had to take place.
Okay.
So
And it's one consultant.
I think it just says, I'm not sure what the language is, if it just says consultant, that could be, I think that understandable change.
So I'm just wondering, for example, did you contemplate whether or not, would, as it's written now, and I guess I'm looking at the St. James, could 2 consultants be hired?
No.
No, 1 consultant. So I'm just, again, if you wanted. So I'm just seeing us all people going into a community. Those 4 people on a subcommittee arrive in Rutland County or Bennington County. They're the ones, is it just sort of public testimony? Or are you thinking there's a way to facilitate and really get people thinking about education?
Oh, I would say that really the mechanics of all of that is left up to the commission. And, we left them with a good sized budget. I think 1 or 2 consultants, whether, different things like that, which would be an oversight on our part that limited it to one.
Okay, so we could up that. And what's the full budget for St. James?
I don't know. That's St. James Office of Legislative Counsel. So AOE was appropriated $200,000 for the task force on school construction. They did not use all of it.
Okay,
And so the appropriation, oh no, is it, yes, it is this bill. What they did not use would be an allowable use for this commission. But I don't know what the bottom line was.
okay. And did, joint fiscal took a look at this and sort of said, hey, yeah, this would give you about this much money to do.
That's based on the 200,000 that was appropriated, most of which was to pay for any work by the treasurer's office. I called the treasurer's office, I said, how much are you gonna be taking out of there? They said about 43,000. Period. Yeah.
Yeah, Senator Weeks and Senator Hewitt.
I'm just curious if we could kind of sidestep the whole concept by saying that we fund like one FTE per year. And it could be multiple people, like a southern facilitator, a northern facilitator, or whatever, not just tied into a single facilitator. Just make the language a little more fluid. Just as an option.
I would just really recommend letting the commission decide how they want to spend the money, but like I said, I think that limiting it to one consultant was merely an oversight. And I also just want to point out, just a section here, going back to Senator Hewitt's comment, it doesn't here, the commission shall review and take into consideration existing educational laws and policy, including legislative reports the commission deemed relevant to its work, as well as acts.
And back to Senator Weeks' point. So I think if there was one full-time FTE facilitator, again, it would limit with how the commission wants to work, right? And then
Well-
also, I'm not sure if we need that.
FTE, well, an FTE refers to a full-time employee.
Yeah,
Where it's
Well, no.
supposed to be contracted labor.
It could mean
Contract.
0.5 people.
Yeah, I'm saying
That's my
FTE
point.
generally refers to somebody who's like on staff, as opposed to just hiring on a contract basis for a temporary amount of time, a facilitator. That's your call, but appreciate the catch on that. Number of consultants.
yeah. Senator Hewitt.
Thank you. We got hung up on the word designee yesterday, so I was wondering if could you clarify what you all had in mind for designee?
So that's pretty standard language when you're forming a task force, and so if we look at the school construction task force, everybody was or designee, and so what that really meant was that if the treasurer couldn't make it that day, you could make his chief of staff the designee.
So for one meeting, he could put someone, okay,
Yeah, or if they were like, I've got too much going on, and you're the expert in this, you're gonna be the AOE's person here, I designate you as that person.
okay, so you don't think we should define it more strictly, you think it's good?
That'd be a question for ledge council, but it's pretty standard issue language when we say so-and-so or designate.
What are you thinking could pop up as a problem? Are you thinking,
Well, I guess I'm still confused, like, so the secretary, some folks have talked to us about like not wanting a designee, like they just want the person.
like,
Which
they
I
want the
understand.
secretary, they
Right.
want the president of UVM, they don't want
Right.
them to push it off on.
And that, I get that, and I don't disagree with that, but then like, what if someone is out of town, or they're sick, or can they designate someone to go?
I don't know the legal answer to that, but I do think that, like, for example, it has the state board chair. What if the state board chair says, this is a volunteer job for me, I've got other things to do, I really like to make the vice chair take this position.
And I believe the Principals Association actually would like the vice chair can't go because of some financial background, so that's something. Senator Weeks, and we're gonna.
No, I will pass. Sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Fisher, you had your hand up.
For the record, Ted Fisher, Vermont Agency of Education, I'm the agency's Director, Policy Strategy and Outreach. So I asked following up hearing the committee's questions yesterday, And it's our assessment that if you were to remove or designate behind the Secretary of Education, the primary, aside from requiring that person to sit for to making that person a member of the committee, the secretary, it would, however, very essentially would leave it up to the commission as to whether someone could deputize for her on the day, which was your concern, Senator Dooley. So we would oppose that merely from the point of convenience. I went back and just looked at all the commissions on our website. We do occasionally designate more formally, as in like the secretary says, hey, AOE staff person, please serve on this commission on my behalf and report back to me. That does happen. When that happens, it's usually on the basis of expertise. So for example, our designees on the Literacy Council, our current, is currently one of our arts or English language arts specialists. I think that's for reasons of subject matter expertise. Generally speaking, the secretary is the person. They spend a lot of their time sitting on this. Like I went and looked, and more often than not, the secretary is the designated, is the individual there. I think just based on without promising anything on behalf of my boss, I think based on the importance of this, she's going to be the person. So I don't think the intent of trying to, perhaps well-intentioned by some groups of wanting to restrict it to make sure the secretary is there, that's going to happen. From our perspective, probably we're also going to staff, which is something we routinely do, which is someone who doesn't have a vote is also present for the purposes of either supporting the commission generally, which we often do, or for the purposes of supporting our designee as well. So for example, we have a designee on the pre-K implementation committee, and our director of student support services also sits in on that. So I think we would respectfully request that designee remain in merely for the purposes of the secretary has a conflict or is out of state or is on vacation or something of that nature.
Or has been assigned to too many task forces and commissions.
Right. That is a question for you all in terms of the number of task forces you create, but this one would obviously be a priority for us.
So on page 3, Representative Conlon, I did have a note here that line 15, the steering committee would provide leadership to the commission. And I think the committee just wanted to flesh that out in terms of, say something about provide leadership.
Well,
I don't remember the exact question, but we got.
sure. I mean, this is a model that was used for the select committee on higher education. They used a steering committee rather than a chair or two co-chairs. And it seemed to work. That was frankly a highly effective committee, worked well. We thought we would mimic it, especially as this is a large group. And it allows a little more sort of consensus as to the direction that you're going. And it takes a little bit more of the politics out of it, where let's say you just said, well, it's Secretary of Education's maybe the chair. People might say, well, that's a political appointee, it's going to go in a different direction. This just sort of takes a lot of the politics out of it as well.
That was my point, is I don't see roles identified. Not saying it could happen, but I've seen it happen where there's a power struggle, somebody said, well, this is really my baby, and, I think I should be in charge, because there's no specific roles identified here.
I mean, we feel confident that, these are all professionals who have served in this way previously, and we really wanted to sort of do as good a job as possible of making it as sort of apolitical or politically balanced as possible.
Okay, I have another question. Great, very helpful. We talked about, and I think we did this with the Act 250, because this is such an important thing. If we, can advance public education, I was particularly concerned that I'd love to have one of these meetings in every county. And the reason being is, I remember it was so helpful with the Act 250 to go around for us to see the landscape, for us to talk to people. And I know everybody's going to meet, whether it be little subgroups, but are you averse to that?
I know, except that I think that it's
It'd be
got a
14 instead
limited
of 10.
number of meetings.
Right, you have it as 10.
Yeah.
So we would do 14.
Yeah, I would call us agnostic on that.
Okay. Yeah. We can talk a little bit more about it. I mean, also, I was just a little afraid. So much, and this is somebody who lives in a very southern part of the state, so much does happen in Montpelier, and I was also concerned, and it's just hard for constituents to get here. It's one of those things, I'd love it if people could be in person, have conversations. I mean, the Act 250, and by the way, wasn't exactly, I mean, a lot of the recommendations had been put in place, so it's not exactly the gold standard of a report, but I felt like it was productive, like we got out there, we really saw people and talked to people, so there was
I
no.
would say
doing
that
nothing.
many folks in the below group 4 geographic area share your concern and passion for getting people down there.
Okay, right, please.
So back to the Act 250 report, I still have a copy of it. Act 250 in the
Yeah.
next 50 years. And we're still talking about Act 250.
Yeah,
And that was only 10 years ago? Long time ago.
it was a long
Yeah,
time ago.
So what do we got,
Chris Pearson and I were the co-chairs, I think. No, he and Amy Shell.
right,
It was a while
I
ago.
remember, I know when it came to Walton County, it was well.
I thought it was really, yeah, and we're hoping this will just get packed, these kinds of conversations.
So
Yeah.
this is gonna make policy.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, propose ideas, then get put into policy.
Yeah, I will say that, this, as we were sort of envisioning this, that and having it in different parts of the state, but that we want to make sure that they have the time to be as productive as possible and that these meetings don't just turn into 2-hour listening sessions.
Right.
But I think, we sort of left it up to the commission to decide how
To
to want
decide
to
how.
handle
Yeah, then that
that
makes
public
sense.
input.
Yeah, Senator Lance.
Maybe go back to the 7 BOCES, the way they divided the. Right. Cut it down by 3. I mean,
Yeah, well, cutting it down by 7, actually, because I was thinking 14.
Yeah,
I just think it, at the
And then,
very
I'll
least,
say that we were sort of envisioning that same geographic breakdown.
where you, I just think, given this opportunity, once in probably a decade or not lifetime opportunity that we're gonna really be sending people out, let's send them out as much as we can, get as much information. I think people will feel great also saying, hey, people came to my district and I was able to say something about my small school or whatever it is. I think it'll help them. Probably never.
I think
came
the
to my
only
town.
concern would be that, members of this body are from Northeast Kingdom, they have to go to Bennington.
Right,
But
they don't know where it is.
It's harder for them to
Right,
figure out.
right. Okay. Any other questions for Representative Conlon?
Thanks for your.
Oh, wait, no, we do have, I'm just, yeah, you're quick. I have another, I just want to see if anybody else did, yeah. The St. James desk.
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel, have you all talked to Representative Conlon about the different references to formal action plan and the steering group and the work plan required in the preliminary report?
We talked a little bit about the preliminary report. And what Representative Conlon said was that work plan comes back in September. That preliminary report is in December. And in that preliminary report, it is basically saying, this is where we're at this point. This is sort of the direction we're going in. Am I representing what your hope is?
Yes, and any recommendations for action that the legislature should take in 2025.
I should not have used the term preliminary report. I meant the September report. So there
The work plan.
Yeah, so there was you all had flagged a great flag that the steering committee in subsection C is required to develop and propose a formal action plan to drive change and innovation in the public education system. And there, I think, is an open question of whether that action plan is meant to be kind of the vision of Vermont, like the final product, the vision, or if it is the work plan that is referenced in that September reporting requirement.
Sorry, what,
Whether those are two separate things.
page one?
What draft are you all working with?
I'm looking at as passed by the House.
Okay.
Yeah.
2.1.
So if we're looking at the as passed by the House, which is
Yep.
under Kirby's name,
Yep.
page 3,
Okay.
line 17.
Yep.
As well as create a formal action plan to drive change and innovation in the public education system.
As well as create a formal action plan to drive education. And this is due back on or before July 1.
No,
No, on
The
the.
question
Point, yes.
the question is, what is the intent of this language? Is this
Right.
language meant to serve as, is the formal action plan referring to the final work product, the vision?
Yes.
Or is it the work plan that is required to be reported to the legislature on page 11, line 20?
I would say that the language that you just said, in the steering
Mhm,
committee, the steering group shall provide leadership to the commission
mhm.
and shall work with a consultant to analyze issues, challenges, and opportunities facing Vermont's public education, as well as create a formal action plan. When it says formal action plan to drive change, all that is referring to the final product.
Okay, then I think we need to work
But
on
I
that
think you need to
language
work
a
on
little
that
bit.
language, yeah.
Thank you for indulging me.
Because tell me what your concern is, Ms. St. James.
You all had, I think, you all had heard testimony from the V's right after our initial walkthrough.
Yes,
And they had made a recommendation that you will see reflected in draft 2.1,
yeah,
that any formal plan should be approved by the full commission. Right?
mhm,
And that led to a conversation of, well, what is this formal plan?
Mhm.
Is it the end product, that vision?
mhm.
Or is it just the work plan that is required to be reported back to you? And I didn't feel comfortable speaking to the intent there, and I could see the ambiguity, and I think I suggested that that would be a great question for the guy you got in the chair.
Yeah. And so so as your intention, Representative Conlon, is for it to be,
When this says, as well as create a formal action plan,
yeah,
that is referring to the final product. Yeah, you probably do need to work with Ledge Council to make that language much more specific or clear.
okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
It just seems like the steering committee would be putting together a formal plan for the commission.
The work,
Yeah,
the work plan.
right. So now I'm really confused.
So now you have put it in a whole different light for me as well. This is referring to the steering committee.
Mhm.
we appreciate you doing this with us. It's very helpful.
Here. So reports and proposed legislation, this is on page 9 toward the bottom, letter F.
That's my house.
As passed by the House. The commission shall prepare and submit to the General Assembly the following a formal written work plan. That's the 15th. Then the 2020, December 15th, 2024, short term. And then number 3, a written report containing its final findings and recommendations for a statewide vision for Vermont's public education system and the policy changes necessary to make that educational vision a reality. That's the written report on it, before not changing everything. Okay. So then if we go back up to the area flag, this is definitely going to be the role. That's really specifically about the steering group. So I'm gonna change what I said. And say the steering group. Isn't. Yeah. So it says to create a formal action plan,
Or the,
that does sound like it's referring to the final. But I don't think it's not the intent to have the steering group do that. I don't think, so it requires that we go back, get a little, find out a refresh by some of the members of my committee.
Please.
thank you.
Yeah.
Can we just add words for the commission? And wouldn't that kind of solve the problem?
I welcome an opportunity to go back and consult with all my members and get back to you on it. It's definitely a little odd in the sense that this is saying the steering group is gonna create a formal action plan. And later on, it says that it's the commission that creates the plan. So,
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Same. I mean, it's a big question, yeah.
I will just say that that language was borrowed right from the select committee on the future of Vermont State College System, so I don't know that we spent much time analyzing it.
Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. That is where we borrowed a lot from. I would say that the steering group is really to provide leadership to the commission. And to work with the consultants. But I would say it is not its job to create a formal action plan to drive change. You want to just strike that part. And stick with the language below for the commission's final product.
Okay, I mean, we'll look at it this after this James does.
Right,
Please, yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
I was just gonna give a, like an analogy if I may. When we, for example, if we do like a superintendent search, we have a superintendent search committee. And we have a superintendent search committee, steering committee, sorry, one committee, not two. And that steering committee creates the work, a plan for the work that the superintendent search committee is gonna do.
Yeah.
I think isn't that what you guys are getting at here?
Yeah,
Okay.
so-
Right.
Give them
Great,
a
no, that's great, thank you.
Center Weeks. Got anything?
Nope, all good.
Center Women's?
Good.
Center She. The only other thing I have here is. And I think we may have asked this of Ms. St. James, or we just haven't gotten there. Outcomes and opportunities, where would we find, remember we talked about this a little bit yesterday? How are we measuring sort of, outcomes and opportunities in this, talking about outcomes and opportunities, expanding opportunities and.
We don't teach about it.
If I did a word search, I'm almost positive the word outcome is in there.
Okay. Okay,
But I don't know do it on like that. But I think it says something about improving student outcomes. Yes,
Academic outcomes, yeah.
what
Yeah.
line?
it's page 5.
Great. Great. Okay, I'm getting play-by-play by Ron Hinsdale, Ray Chittenden, because they're looking at the same thing. And I just, they're. As my understanding is that they are going to be working on cost containment. Yeah, hopefully they are. It asks, yeah, they're asking us to keep an eye on cost containment as well.
So the bottom of page 4 on page 5 says,
Yeah.
duties of the commission shall study Vermont's public education system. Make recommendations to ensure all students are afforded quality educational opportunities and an efficient, sustainable, and equitable system that will enable students to achieve the highest academic outcomes.
Yeah. All of this, I think even the general, if we had passed what you had all passed, given the incredible conversations that have been happening in the building and in the state for the past 10 years, I think people would take this charge and move in a good direction. We're just trying to tighten things up in a few spots.
Yeah, I totally appreciate it. Sort of the overarching goal here is to sort of get everybody moving in the same direction. which will help us in the legislature deal with the hardest questions. Which somebody's gonna have to face them, probably us.
Yeah.
This at least says we're all going towards this North Star.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the
Yeah,
good review, and
yeah.
frankly, a couple of good catches. Appreciate it.
So we'll just stay in touch.
Yeah.
You know where we are.
Yeah.
Thanks. Ms. St. James, do you mind joining us and we'll finish the detailed walkthrough? We left off at the top of page 7. Gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 more pages to review.
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel, I, with you guys unfortunately for only 15 more minutes.
Yep.
What draft are you looking at?
I have been working from the as passed
Oh,
myself.
okay.
Um,
I have a draft 2.1 for you all that has the changes I made highlighted in yellow.
okay. Before we do those, I think we should just keep going on the more detailed walkthrough.
Sure.
And then we could maybe look at all the changes tomorrow,
Sure.
depending on time. This way we sort of get through the whole thing and talk
Have
about.
we not done a walkthrough?
We have, but
Okay.
we've been going, I'm sorry, yesterday, after you left, we've been reading through.
Oh,
And we left at the top of page 7.
okay.
And we've been saying, hey, this is where we'll add this is where we'll add that. So we stopped at top of page 7. And we were talking about, where it says physical size and footprint of the system. And it says the commission shall study and make recommendations regarding how the unique geographical and socioeconomic needs of different communities should factor into the provision of education in Vermont, taking into account and building upon recommendations of the state aid to school construction working group recommendations under the subject. So you could just help us move through these last 4 pages, that would be great.
Okay, so we're going line by line, is that?
Yeah, a little bit more detail.
So again, subsection, we're on page 7, line 3 of the as passed by the House version. Everything under B is meant to relate back to physical size and footprint, the overarching theme here. So the first item that the working group or the commission would be required to consider is an analysis of the current number and location of school buildings, school districts, and SUs, and whether additional consolidation is needed to achieve Vermont's vision for education, provided that if there is a recommendation for any amount of consolidation, the recommendation shall include a recommended implementation plan.
So what do we call the system? That's all, that next paragraph is the system,
Where are you
that's in
seeing?
line 3. These,
The education system.
yeah, okay.
I can certainly add that word.
Okay.
The second item is an analysis of the capacity and ability to staff all public schools with qualified workforce.
Yeah, great.
Driven by data on class size recommendations.
For any concerns, we'll just keep going unless people raise their hands.
An analysis of the current town tuition program and whether, and if so, what changes are necessary to meet Vermont's vision for education, including the legal and financial impact of funding independent schools and other private institutions, including consideration of the following. I'm on page 8 now. The role designation should play in delivery of public education, the financial impact, and the financial impact to the education fund of public dollars being used for schools located outside Vermont. An analysis of the current use of private therapeutic schools and the provision of special education services, and whether and if so, what changes are necessary to meet Vermont's special education needs, including the legal and financial impact of funding private therapeutic schools. So that's the footprint size of the system. Subsection C is the role of public, subdivision C is the role of public schools. So the commission shall study and make recommendations regarding the role of public schools. That public schools should play in both the provision of education and the social and emotional well-being of students. So at a minimum, their recommendations need to include the following: how public education in Vermont should be delivered, whether Vermont's vision for public education shall include the provision of wraparound supports and co-location of services.
In community schools, that what they're talking here, or?
I think that would be encompassed
Encompassed,
there.
okay, Thank
Mhm.
you. Yeah, certainly.
Can we go back to a little V on line, 12?
What
Impact-
page are you on?
I'm on page 8.
Okay,
Impact of funding private therapeutic schools. I just found out there's two. There's nonprofit and then there's for-profit.
Mhm.
So is that a distinction we should make there? Or is that what we're gonna find out?
I think you will find that out, but I believe this would sweep in anything that is not a public school.
Okay.
Private therapeutic schools, whether they're for profit or not. Okay,
So I'm on page 8, line 17, what the consequences are for the commission's recommendations regarding the role of public schools and other service providers. Including what the role of public schools means for staffing, funding, and any other affected system. With the goal of most efficiently utilizing state funds and services and maximizing federal funding. I believe this is getting at like drawing down federal funds and Medicaid dollars, how all of those different services need to fit together to be the most efficient and effective. Page 9, the fourth topic is the Ed Fund. So the commission shall explore the efficacy and potential equity gains changes to the education funding system, including weighted educational opportunity payments as a method to fund public education. The commission's recommendation shall be intended to result in an education funding system designed to afford substantially equal access to a quality basic education for all students in accordance with Brigham. Again, recommendations under this topic need to include at a minimum allowable uses for the Ed Fund that just ensure sustainable and equitable use of state funds. The method for setting tax rates to sustain allowable uses of the Ed Fund. Implementation details for any recommended changes to the Ed funding system. And that's it for D. And then catch-all, anything else relevant to the work.
Yeah.
Reports and proposed legislation at the very bottom of page 9, line 18. The commission shall prepare and submit to General Assembly 4 things. The first is a formal written work plan, which I'm now understanding we think is going to be what the steering committee is coming up with,
Yes.
which is a work plan for the commissioner. Okay.
She'll bring in our final draft.
Yes, yep.
Thank you, tomorrow.
Which shall include a communication plan to maximize public engagement, and that's due to you all on or before September 15th of 2024. We're on page 10 now. Preliminary written report with preliminary findings and recommendations, including short-term cost containment considerations for the 2025 legislative session. That's due on or before December 15th of 2024. The final report with final findings and recommendations for a statewide vision and all of the policy changes necessary to make that vision a reality is due to you all December 1, 2025.
Okay, beginning of the second year of the plan, okay,
And then we should add a date to number 4 on lines 8 and 9.
okay,
Propose legislative language to advance any recommendations specific to the education funding system. You want to keep going?
please, don't see anything.
Assistance. This is where we're gonna get into the consultant language. So AOE shall contract with an independent consultant to provide technical and legal assistance to the commission.
Are people okay with just as independent consultants, like, just give them the option? They might have one person for 10,000 and something else, okay?
For the purpose of scheduling meetings and providing administrative assistance, the commission shall have the assistance of the agency. And the agency shall also provide the educational and financial data necessary to facilitate the work of the commission. And school boards, and you already heard testimony that should be districts, shall comply with requests from the agency to assist in data collection.
St. James, where it says independent consultants provide technical and legal assistance to the commission for the work. That allows them to hire a facilitator, right?
Yes, I think so, but
Yeah.
if you wanna tip your hat to what you think that this
Yeah,
consultant should be
just as,
doing.
no, just as an option,
Mhm.
or facilitator, technical, legal, facilitating assistance, whatever, you know, I don't wanna box them in. Thank you.
Meeting. So I'm at the very bottom of page 10, line 18. The Secretary of Education will call the first meeting to occur on or before July 15th. The speaker and the pro tem will jointly select a chair. Again, that was borrowed from the Commission on Higher Ed.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
A majority of the membership constitutes a quorum. All meetings are conducted in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law. And the commission will cease to exist on December 31st, 2025. Members of the commission shall be entitled to per diem reimbursement for not more than 30 meetings, and that includes subcommittee meetings. And those payments will be made from monies appropriated to AOE, and that appropriation is section 1A, right below it.
And I think it'll end up being more than 30 personally, but they would be able to come back beginning of next biennium and add that.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions from the St. James, comments or concerns? Please,
Just a summary,
these guys, yeah.
commission chair, steering group, commission. How about hierarchy of this organization?
Say that again. Mission chair.
Commission chair, steering group, commission.
Yeah.
This,
And then organizations that they need to reach, you know, the minimum number of organizations that they need to reach out to work on this.
It may be helpful for someone, whether it's online or offline, to just talk to the higher ed commission on how that functions.
Mhm.
Because this is literally borrowed
Yeah,
right from it. I have no idea if it worked well or not.
yeah, it's a great question. I think the difference is this is so much what, and this is why it's really important, I think, to go to every county. This is such a local conversation where the one on higher education wasn't. And so to travel to our state colleges is one thing, and talk to people, and I don't even know if they did that, but to go into local communities, and really have a conversation and understand those communities. Burlington, Northeast Kingdom, get everybody so they understand the different issues of what's happening. Yeah.
So back on page 3 yesterday, line 9. There's 13, one representative from the Vermont Independent Schools Association visa appointed by the president. We got into a discussion about special ed and therapeutic schools.
I think that representation is included in that.
Okay.
Because they are part of that association. And again, my hope is that each group will go back
Okay.
and to their constituencies and say, what do you think of this?
Okay. Because I had a lobbyist, I can't remember who it was, because I had somebody talking today. Came up and said that therapeutic schools are not under a visa anymore.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Well, the other piece of this, as it relates to therapeutic schools, so I don't have to look, is there a special ed person in this mix?
There is the chair of the Census-Based Funding Advisory Group from Act 173, and I would say that's as close as it gets.
Okay. Senator Weeds?
oh, no, it's the same issue.
Yeah.
They did say, this particular lobbyist, advocate, did say that if it's a big group of 24, they would like to have a therapeutic representative, make sure their voice is heard. If
Well,
it's a
yeah, I
smaller-
think these guys are getting
Yeah.
narrowed down.
Then I don't
Yeah.
need to.
Can we take off legislators on this? Wait, is that? That help?
I mean, I would love to, because I think it kind of gets people, gives us real, I don't think this is the freshest group of minds and people, frankly. You know, these are kind of the usual suspects, blah, blah, blah. I mean, in a way, I would say if I had a magic wand, I'd say have somebody come in and really sort of look and advise, pull different things in, but yeah, I'm all for getting rid of legislators, but that's up to all of you.
Does provide insight. No, I don't think we need 5, but having maybe one of each. One from the
Right.
Senate, one from the House, just We lose so much in translation, screws, you know?
Yeah, I'd be good with one and one.
Right, I think that's what.
See, it's already been decided, not just.
Well, no, we already said, you know, we're gonna try to get this down. We're trying to get, so I think.
Just to, if we're here in 30 seconds.
Yes, and if we're gonna go,
So page 9 at the bottom, I'm using 2.5, but under the ed fund, double I. The method of setting tax rates, sustain allowable uses of the ed fund. I think that really references property tax rates. Is that correct? Yeah, it's kind of the way it's drafted.
Waiting is income tax. So,
this is James.
The ed fund is made up of several different taxes.
Okay, I just want to make sure this it doesn't hem in anybody. I know this is like at a minimum kind of thing, but I just want to make sure that no one's constraining this group to look at how to fund this system. Because
That is exactly what they're asking,
Okay,
is for recommendations on how to fund the system.
And I think finance will do more of it. And my notes, we can go back, if you can remember the consultant or the advocate, Senator Williams, Visa does represent therapeutic schools.
used to.
I think
Wait,
they
they
still
stop?
do. I think they still do.
Yeah, when did they stop?
I don't know, as of this morning, maybe she said they represent some, but they drifted away.
Well, maybe it's off out of state for profit, but I think they do.
I think Oliver would, Oliver Olson.
Oliver Olson might, yeah,
For the record, Ted Fisher, Agency of Education, again, this is purely hearsay on my part, but it's my understanding there is a subset of, it might be worth asking them, but it's my understanding there's a subset of therapeutic schools that are not considered to be are not registered as nonprofits for a variety of reasons.
well,
And
I don't think
those
we're putting them on this.
don't, I guess, if something happened and they're no longer members of Visa.
Thank you.
Worth asking Visa.
I was just gonna say, since they have to report on therapeutic schools, I would imagine they're gonna have to consult with them, even if they don't have a rep of the group. Like, I just think they're gonna be brought in one way or another, but.
And I think they're also gonna be, what's worth a big part of the conversation of each BOCES district, because that's one of the biggest expenses of some of these for-profit therapeutic schools that kids are getting sent to, and I think it'd be great if it makes sense for certain kids to stay closer, but we'll see. Anything else on this? And St. James, you and I are gonna follow up right now, and
Oh.
make sure you have to go.
I have to go to House Ed,
Okay, what time are you done?
maybe 4:30.
Do you mind coming back?
Yeah.
Just make sure we're all on the
I
same
can
page.
stay
and
for
then we'll
about
look.
15 minutes
Right
after
now?
that. No,
Okay, yeah,
after, I can
great.
stay till about 4:45.
If anybody else wants to come back at 4:30, you're welcome to. I'm just gonna go through these changes with her. Be ready to vote tomorrow on possibly this as well as CVs. Anything else? Thanks, everybody.